Don't watch this if you're still waiting on God, because waiting is not a gentle season. It is a season that confronts you. It questions your faith, stretches your patience, and challenges your understanding of who God really is. Waiting is the place where belief becomes costly. If you are still waiting, it does not mean God has turned away from you. It means He has slowed you down on purpose. God does not rush when forming something meant to last. What He is building in you cannot be assembled in a moment. It requires time, pressure, and careful attention. Waiting is painful because it removes all distractions. You can no longer hide behind busyness or constant movement. Life becomes quiet, and in that quiet your thoughts become loud. Doubt rises, fear whispers, and questions you avoided suddenly demand answers. But this is intentional. God uses silence to bring things to the surface. When nothing changes externally, God is working internally. He begins to reshape your thinking, strip unhealthy expectations, and confront the areas where your faith has become conditional. Waiting reveals whether you trust God for who He is or only for what He gives. Many people think waiting means God is withholding. In reality, waiting often means God is protecting. There are prayers that, if answered too early, would have damaged you permanently. There are doors that, if opened prematurely, would have led you into unnecessary pain. That is why waiting requires surrender. You are asked to release control over timelines, outcomes, and explanations. And surrender feels like loss before it feels like peace. But God never removes control without replacing it with something better trust. Waiting also exposes emotional dependency. It shows where you seek comfort when God seems distant. It reveals attachments God never intended to define you. Until those attachments are healed or removed, certain prayers cannot be released into your life safely. This is why waiting often feels lonely. God may intentionally distance people, remove emotional crutches, and isolate you in ways that hurt. But isolation in God's hands is never abandonment. It is refinement. In waiting seasons, God reorders your priorities. He shifts your focus from results to relationship. You begin to understand that God is not just a destination. He is the companion through the process. And once you learn that, the waiting no longer feels empty. Waiting teaches spiritual discernment. You begin to recognize God's voice without constant confirmation. You learn to move by conviction rather than emotion. This kind of maturity can only be learned when there is no rush. Many people break during waiting seasons not because they lack faith, but because they misunderstand the purpose of waiting. They believe delay means denial, but God often delays because He sees what you cannot, the entire picture. Behind the scenes, God aligns circumstances, timing, and protection. Some blessings require multiple pieces to fall into place, and until everything is aligned, the door remains closed. Waiting also teaches humility. When others seem to move ahead while you stand still, it tests your heart. Comparison becomes tempting. Doubt creeps in. But God uses this tension to teach you that your journey is not measured against others. God builds depth before visibility, roots before fruit, and roots always grow in darkness. This is why waiting feels unseen and uncelebrated. But strong roots prevent future collapse. In waiting, God removes shortcuts from your life. He trains you to value endurance over speed, because fast progress without foundation leads to fragile success. Waiting also increases spiritual authority. When you learn to obey without seeing results, you become grounded. You stop chasing validation and start standing in identity. That stability is what sustains blessings long term. When you wait with God, you learn to worship without reward, praise without answers, trust without evidence. And this kind of faith moves heaven more than public victories ever could. Waiting reshapes your expectations. You begin to desire alignment over speed, purpose over comfort. You stop asking God to move quickly and start asking Him to move correctly. The pain of waiting is not wasted. Every unanswered prayer is teaching you something. Every delay is strengthening your spirit. Every quiet moment is deepening your awareness of God's presence. God also uses waiting to heal your past. Unresolved wounds resurface in quiet seasons. But healing cannot happen in constant motion. Waiting gives space for restoration. Eventually, something changes, not always the situation, but you. You become more patient, more grounded, more aware. You realize the waiting didn't weaken you, it matured you. And when the door finally opens, you will not rush through it, desperate or insecure. You will step into it prepared, steady, and whole. So if you are still waiting on God, stay. Do not rush this season. Do not escape it. There is wisdom being formed here, strength being developed, identity being secured. This waiting is not punishment. It is preparation. It is not delay, it is design. And when the time comes, everything God has been doing in the dark will make sense in the light.